Here we are at the San Francisco International Book Fair. It's February 16th, 2013. And our next interview is with Michael Heaston, who used to be in Kansas and then went to Texas and went back to Kansas. Michael is one of my oldest and dearest friends in the trade. He is an expert in Western Americana and Texana and a very respected bookseller. So Michael, now having had that flowery introduction, why don't you give us a little biography of yourself, family, where you went to school, the kinds of things that you did in higher education, siblings, etc.
I was born and raised in Wichita, obviously, and raised in 1943. In fact, one interesting aspect, I was born on Mother's Day, and I was a prize. Mother won extra money for having a baby boy on Mother's Day.
Oh, how cool.
So went to East High and Roosevelt Junior High. We had a really great 61 class. Bob Gates was in our class.
Oh, really?
Former Secretary of, what do they call it, Defense now. Was raised in a family, didn't have a whole lot of money, but education was very high on their thoughts. I was the only child to get a degree from college and basically have a master's in history and a BA in history. Then shortly after graduating from college, I was asked by the president of the university, Clark Alberg, to run special collections, or start special collections and library associates for the university, which then I did from 1968 through 1976, received tenure, and then decided to leave after being with Mike Ginsberg and Bill Reese and Fred White, suggesting maybe I ought to see what the other side of bookselling is, become a capitalist and not a beggar of books. So then I went to work for the Jenkins company from 1976 to about 1980.
What was your position?
I was manager of the rare books and head of publishing. And then shortly in 1980, Archie Hanna was getting ready to retire from Yale at the Beinecke Library, and he asked me if I would like to interview for the position, which I did. And in a short time, they had it winnowed down to two people: George Miles, who is now currently Curator of Western Collections at Yale, and he got the job, and I didn't, and I was happy about it.
Yeah.
And then shortly after that, then I went into book business on my own.
In Texas?
In Texas, in Austin.
In Austin. Okay. That brings us pretty much up to speed. And then let me just ask you a couple of general questions. In the book trade, who are some of your mentors? Some of the people who influenced you to do what you do?
I really don't know how to.
I think Archie Hanna probably
Well,
was.
Archie was one of the more important ones from the standpoint of, from the, what would you want to call it, from a curator standpoint, but then was always interested in my career. He always said that he had two priorities in life, and that was on the book business was Bill Reese and myself, that he felt he had some influence, which I think is true. And then I think there was lots of booksellers out there. I mean, Johnny Jenkins, some influence. He's a very enjoyable person to be around and everything else. Learned some things, and I don't know, just a little bit of everybody. I mean, would want to say any specific.
Understood.
Because I always enjoyed. With Johnny, we went to Chicago and we met Ken Nevins all, and that was kind of fun. It was just always meeting different people. Hamilton Barker, other people in New York, and Steve Wiseman and Warren Howe, but never really had a real close connection to those people. It was really was in later in life. That when you finally become a bookseller and becoming part of the ABAA, then you get to know more people. It's just like here, just the last few book fairs, several of us have talked about how many of the old timers are now left, and the strange part about it, I'm an old timer.
I'm an old timer, I think.
Well, I'm going to be 70, and you're what?
74.
Yeah, you're a mere child.
yeah. I've only been doing this for 57 years. So.
Yeah.
Hopefully another 57.
God help us.
I think my wife could handle it, but
No, she'd kick you out.
obviously, I mean, why would it? You were very late coming into the internet. What did you feel about the internet that sort of turned you away from it when it first started, and took you a while before you felt some comfortableness with it?
I think probably it was just, I could do everything without the internet for many, many years. And obviously I just got a computer just a year ago. So you can say I got a computer at 68. And I don't know if I was always comfortable. I was always leery of technical things, because if they break down, I'm terrible about fixing things. And I noticed a little bit just here in what happened in trying to fix it. But anyway, I think I never was comfortable, but then once I learned about it, for the certain aspects of it, it's very good. From the emails, yes, emails, no. But the search engines like ABAA, American Book Exchange, eBay, Orbis, WorldCat, OCLC, all that information in Google just brings more material to your feed that you can use. And so cataloging is easier, but I don't issue catalogs anymore. So, but yes, it's made life a lot simpler, but not always, just because of the glitches, and I'm not willing to learn every aspect of it. But I have noticed big changes because of the internet on how books are sold, what's available. I think that's more the shocking thing. I am presently giving a collection of Thomas Merton to Wichita State, and I thought I would help fill in not books he wrote, but books about him. And so forth. I picked up about 30, and then I was amazed that there could be 25 copies of one book on the internet.
It is amazing.
Yeah, and it could range from $75 to $25. Ex-libraries to beat-up books, to mint copies, signed copies, and that sort of thing. So that it's kind of enlightening from that, but sometimes I feel so much technology becomes an infringement in life, in my opinion.
I'm not so sure you're wrong,
But I mean, for the younger folks, the young man that works for me now, he's 22 years old, and he's been using a computer since 7. And so if I have somebody like that around, I don't always have to. I don't have to know everything.
Right, that's true. That's true.
I mean, when you can have a person that age that can make a computer just whiz, it's just almost scary, and do so many different things in such a short time. Which I see, and we're talking about all those things, but I said he can't leave. He's got to stay permanent. I'm going to get a ball and chain to tie him down.
Yeah, or something equally pleasant. Over the years, you have issued a lot of very fine catalogs, and I'm sad to hear you say that you don't issue catalogs anymore. Is there any chance you will be issuing a catalog, or are you all done with that?
Well, it may not be called a catalog. It might be a list where we have about 100 items, but 300 items of those days are gone. Yeah. But we may be more illustrated, and the shifting of my dealings have changed a lot. I probably, after I left Texas, I put most of the hardbound books up for sale or for auction, and I probably don't have more than 25 hardbound books in stock, but they're all important books.
Right.
But then the stock now is basically pamphlets and manuscripts, and it's just the market's changed so dramatically. I was on a buying trip, and it's back to the internet, and I saw Coutant's History of Wyoming, Volume 1, which is all that was issued, and I asked the people to look it up, and there are 4 copies on the internet. Even though they were $450, I wouldn't buy it because I had no idea where to sell it. And
neither do the other 4 people.
The other 4, yeah, but that, I think that's very important, because the book trade is changing so dramatically and so fast that, and you can get reprints. The university structure has changed. They don't have the money to buy books. Everything, budgets are tight. The few libraries that do have lots of money, they have everything. So the next step has to be unusual things, either pamphlets or manuscripts or photographs.
Yeah, broadsides.
And that sort of thing, yeah. The more ephemeral things that they didn't collect. But the normal basic hardbound books or classics they have, and you almost have to have a new institution or a new collector, and new collectors are not that easily found nowadays.
It's coming from the sky, I would think. How many book fairs do you do on a somewhat annual basis? Or do you have a couple that you do? Or?
Well, actually, I started out doing, when I was in Austin, we had Austin Book Fair, maybe a Houston Book Fair. I do the Boston Book Fair, New York for a few times. Always did the California book fairs. And book fairs have become too expensive from certain places like New York, and that Western Americana doesn't sell in New York, so there's no need to do it. So I basically enjoy doing the West Coast book fairs, and all the smaller book fairs are slowly but surely slowing down.
That's true.
Yeah, but as long as the LA Book Fair I didn't particularly care for, but once since they moved to Pasadena, Pasadena is a lot easier town to get around, and San Francisco is always a wonderful town,
Oh, yeah.
and it attracts lots of dealers from everywhere, and there's a good clientele of people to come in to look.
And you can't beat the weather.
And can't beat the weather. But book fairs, I mean, I suppose if I had a general stock, maybe I would do New York and maybe Boston, but it's just, I don't, and I don't want to have that many. It's a one-man operation, so,
Yeah.
so there's only so much you can do.
There's only so much you can spread yourself around.
Right.
It makes a huge difference. If you were entering the book trade today, how would you do it? Would you do it?
I'm not sure. That's kind of difficult to say because you're looking at it a different perspective. Now, if I was looking at it that I've already, if I was just starting, I guess I probably wouldn't do it because I think it's going to be pretty. I think it's going to be pretty tough in the future.
It already is pretty tough, though.
But you know, what I'm saying is that it's going to take more and more money to go into the book business. And the other part is the merchandise. There's too few of items with too many people chasing them.
Right.
So that makes a big difference. And but on the other hand, if I was 25 years old, maybe I'd be all enthused and would want to do it, and maybe it would be a challenge. But from the perspective is how I look at it now, no, I think it would be, I'd have to really think about it, especially the way the e-books and all that kind of stuff. You'd have to really, like a general bookstore, of course I wouldn't do that. I mean, obviously I'd want to do a rare book, but like I say, to do that now would take a certain amount of capital, and I think it'd be tough to do it.
One of the other questions that I ask is, if a young man came up to you and said, "Mr. Heaston, I'm thinking about becoming a bookseller. What's the most important thing I need to know?"
Well, the most important thing is to have a good personality, know how to get along with people, and know how to not be crotchety, and like a lot of booksellers are. Yeah, curmudgeons. You have to get yourself out there, and you have to work. I mean, I think maybe that'd be the first thing is, with the way the economy is and everything else, you're going to have to really get out there and hustle. It's just not going to come to you. And I think that's probably one of the more important things. And then to maybe have a backer. But at one time, when I thought about it, I thought that would be the most important thing, was to have a backer when I first started. And when Mike Parrish and I thought about going into the book business together. And I went to Wichita and talked to a couple doctors. Didn't work out, and I said, well, to hell with it. Went in the book business. But so.
But your situation is a little different. Most of the booksellers are married and have families, and there's just you, which means that your needs financially may not be anywhere near the financial needs of some of your colleagues.
Well, that may be true, but that doesn't mean. Lots of people like to look at it that way because I don't have kids, but I give a lot of money away.
Yeah, I was going to get to that.
I mean, there's a difference there. I've got a couple kids that I'm helping go to school. I've set up a fund for the university. for buying books. I'm setting up well, it's already set up, was a research fund for the history department. So yes, you could say I don't have the financial burdens, but the money's gone.
Are you still a supporter of the church? You were for many years.
Yes, I have. I mean, I'm not that active, but basically in my financial situation, it's not benefiting the church, but there's a organization, it's with the Catholic Church, it's called Lord's Diner, and I've set that up in the trust where they'll get X amount of money, but the money has to go to buy food for the homeless.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, if anybody wants to think about these things before they jump into any of these areas of giving, is make stipulations where the money is going to go, how it's going to be spent, because if you don't, the universities and other institutions will twist it and put it into something else. But that's how I've basically done it, is just that the money can only be spent for a certain thing, that's it.
So in essence, really, your family is the charities that you support.
Yeah, and the other part is that the family basically, my niece doesn't need the money, and my sister doesn't need the money, so why not spread it around and make people happy?
That's the main objective of being a bookseller. Making everybody happy.
Yeah, right.
Everybody
So
happy.
you can't do that, Michael.
I know. And that's a good note to end our interview.
Oh, good. Thank God.
I know.